The Night King is one mysterious dude. I've gone through and tried to catalog every single interaction that we've had with him on the television series and try to figure out his motivation. But in this video, I'm going to propose several different ideas and theories that I came up with while doing some research. Let's begin. One of the first times we see him in the show is when he's turning one of Craster's sons into what we assume is his White Walker. Like another White Walker. He's adding to his ranks of generals. But I would like to ultimately find out by the end of, if not this series, maybe the spinoff series, what happens during the incubation period. How do they go from a child to an aged man? There's got to be some sort of locked-in ice cell. I don't know, maybe time passes differently. Maybe they're in an alternate reality and this is how they age. Who knows? It could just be magic. But the key takeaway there is that the first time we see him is with a child. A heavy theme that was repeated all throughout Season 7, and you could honestly say this was the motivation behind maybe 3 to 4 different main characters, was that procuring an heir. Making sure that not only are you going to rule whatever you want to rule, whether that's the Iron Throne, what Cersei may be forced to Casterly Rock, Dragonstone, the North, whatever you want to call it, you have to procure an heir. You have to get married, and then you have to make a baby so that there's a future for everyone to look forward to. So, the Night King's very first motivation was getting children to add to his ranks as an army. And when we saw him back then, he wasn't really causing too much of a stir. He was still north of the wall, which is another thing I want to point out. The only reason why he went south of the wall, technically, as all we know of, because he hadn't done it before this, was once Bran escaped from Bloodraven's cave, that's when he decided he wanted to head south. So we can check off the fact that he wants to procure an heir on the list as one thing that motivates him. As a matter of fact, that's the very first thing that we find out that motivates him. That and death, he's a bit sadistic. But either way, the next thing that I want to talk about, and I kind of spoiled it a few seconds earlier when I mentioned it, was the fact that he moved south because Bran moved south. He had an opportunity to do this before then, and we could sit here and debate in the comment section, which I hope that we will. That's the point of making these videos. But the main point of debating my point would be, well, he didn't fly south until he got the dragon. So he's going to either chase Jon Snow and Daenerys to get more dragons, or we could say that he went south as a combination of both of them. More so to Jon Snow, but we'll talk about that later. So with that being said, the first time that he meets Bran is when Bran is in Bloodraven's cave, and he's known about him before because Bran has had interactions with whites, and since he's a green seer himself, the Night King, I'm sure that he's been aware of Bran's presence. But the very first time that they sort of come almost face to face is when he's coming to kill Bloodraven. Bloodraven is a Targaryen, Targaryens are Valyrians, and Valyrians are the children of fire. Bran is a Stark. Stark is of the Firstmen. The Firstmen are the children of ice. So, the Night King, one of his clear motivations, and this is the second reason that, throughout all my research that I found, is that he wants to kill Bloodraven. Even though it's Bran or Three-Eyed Crow, I know you guys get bitchy about that, but seemed like the Night King took the most pleasure when he was killing the Three-Eyed Raven. So, Bran likely caused that, and that's what we're led to believe, because remember, his arm was grabbed, and when he went into the Weirwood net without the guide of Bloodraven, he went into the Weirwood net, and this is when he was caught by the Night King. So we're just led to assume that he's, going to this cave to kill Bran. But it seems like his whole reason for going there is to kill Bloodraven. Bloodraven is a Targaryen. Maybe, and, catch me if I'm wrong, I understand that it was Bran's mark that allowed him to go into the cave, but in that cave was ice and fire, which is something that I think he's naturally drawn to, which is how he was created. So it would only make sense as to him being drawn to these two elements. So you have ice and fire in this cave because Bloodraven in the novels is a Targaryen. And what I mean when I say the fact that the Night King was created by this ice and fire, from what we saw on the TV show, the way that he was created was using not only frozen fire, which on like the 5th page of the World of Ice and Fire, it's mentioned that the Valyrians had another word for dragonglass or obsidian, which was translate to literally frozen fire. So you could honestly say that obsidian is ice and fire in and of itself. It's symbolism there. But we all assume that this Night King is a Northernman because he's dealing with the children of the forest, and we know that history states that there was a pact between the two of them. So, if this is the case, the Night King was created using fire magic and ice magic. Maybe, you know what, this has got my brain going off here, and I'm about to reach for this. Hopefully I can make it into the basket. Put your tinfoil cats on your head. Go ahead and put those cats on your head. But what if the Children of the Forest tried to interpret the original prophecy of ice and fire? Obviously, it wasn't called that. You know, we have it, the prince that was promised, all these different names for this prophecy, but they pretty much state the same thing. What if the Children of the Forest were trying to recreate this themselves? What if they were using it under the guide of Bloodraven? What if Bloodraven had the interpretation wrong, where he thought that if he took a child of ice, which was this Northernman, this Night King, and used fire magic to create something of like a combination of them, what if this is what he wanted to make, the prince that was promised? He wanted to make this for, you know, for future use in whatever war and whatever plans and schemes that he had going on at the time. But the prophecy gets interpreted by many different people. Rhaegar interpreted in the fact that he, or his family rather, the prince that was promised would come from his lineage. So with that being said, he knew, or his version of creating this child of ice and fire, this child that was promised, was by having sex. I know you're like, whoa, dude, you're trying to say that one of the biggest mysteries, or, you know, one of the biggest prophecies is involving sex. Well, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, because when you read the books, you find out that George R. R. Martin, great as he is, awesome of a writer as he is, the best writer of our time, in my opinion, as awesome as he is a bit of a pervert. So it would not shock me if one of the best ways, and this is a heavy theme in Game of Thrones Season 8, is to, you know, the only way to make this prophecy is by having a union of ice and fire one way or another. So we have two different versions of it, and maybe this is why the Night King has taken what could only be described as a liking to Jon Snow. It just doesn't make sense how Jon is able to survive encounters with him twice. The Night King is a god as far as we know. He's all powerful, and he's pretty much, if he's not the Great Other, he is working as the Great Other's right hand. But the two occasions I'm talking about is at Hardhome, and then again in Season 7 when they went beyond the wall. It's out of my brain to, I'm in disbelief that the Night King couldn't have killed Jon both of these times. He's able to resurrect an army of dead. He's able to use these dead to pull a dragon out of a lake. There's no way that he couldn't have did a very similar thing, had them pile their bodies up, and he walked across it and killed Jon Snow right then and there to add more people to his army, because a good amount of them escaped. Remember, there was a good amount of them in the Battle of the Bastards, so a lot of, at least 2,000 of them survived Hardhome. So those were easy transports that he could get, and I refuse to believe that the Night King can't swim. We saw him do something to the ground outside of Bloodraven's cave, which was basically freeze it and force it upward. So he's a bit of an earthbender. There's no way he couldn't have killed Jon Snow. Maybe, just maybe, since the first time we saw him, he was wanting to get a baby to add to his army. Maybe he's just lonely, he wants kids. Maybe he wants Jon Snow to come with him back beyond the wall. Initially, he wanted to get to Bran because he knew that Bran was related to Jon Snow. So one way to get to Jon Snow, he could proposition him where he look, I'm going to kill Bran or you come with me. Maybe he just wants people who are like him to be close to him. So he was this original version, or this original fucked up version of the prince that was promised as interpreted by the Children of the Forest. And Jon Snow is the correct version of it through sex and through procreation. And honestly, that's what all this is about. Right? It all comes down to having sex and making sure there's future humans to live. Life goes on. Alright, now this has been a bit of a different video for me, and it was a lot of fun to make, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, one way to do so is by leaving a like on this video. The like goal will be 137. Also, if you could please leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought about my interpretation of sex being the entirety of Game of Thrones. So let me know all that down below in the comment section. Super special shout out to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHunsReviews. Without you all's love and support, I could not make these kinds of videos, and I want to thank you all so much for doing what you do. Also, super special shout out to every single person that watches these videos. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunt's Reviews. You're probably like, Did Sir Hunch just really end this video by saying that the goal of the Night King is to just be around other people like him and that sex is the entirety? Yes, I did. It's all love, man. Sex is everything. Everyone's having it, no matter what your preference is. It's awesome.